Yo, what is up YouTube? Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Brema, and in today's episode, I'm just going to be catching you guys up with what's been going on the past few months. As you guys, some of you guys probably know, some of you guys probably don't, but we currently transitioned from Los Angeles back to Milwaukee to open up a retail spot. So we're right in downtown Milwaukee, really prime spot for the brand to be. It was really beautiful being out in Los Angeles, and all the connections that we've made have been really incredible to help us continue building the brand forward. I'm still going to be bouncing between Milwaukee and Los Angeles, but in terms of our community, we realized within also our Shopify analytics, we ship a lot of stuff back to Milwaukee, so we wanted to come back and really be a part of the city and really sustain and cultivate the culture here in Milwaukee in terms of streetwear, art, and creativity. So hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. Again, this is going to be a long one. I recently did this sofa session, so just sitting in front of an audience and just being asked questions, talking a little bit about my journey. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how the brand has been able to navigate over the few years, this is the video for you. I hope you guys enjoy. Feel free to subscribe also. Leave any comments below of anything that you find interesting within this video. Enjoy. Peace. Feeling great.
That's good. That's good.
Mic on?
Yeah, it's on.
That mic's on. I'll just be loud. How about
I don't
that?
trust the mic usually.
Okay. All right. So I'm so happy that I'm getting this opportunity to sit down with you. I've been wanting to interview you for a while, and this has never come to pass. So now we're on the couch.
Here we are.
So we're gonna do it.
Also, there's seating up front here if you guys want to move forward.
No,
Don't be scared.
don't be scared. We don't bite. Let's try. All right, cool. So, I kind of want to start off with you activating this space today. So I saw the pop-up was really fire. So that's pretty dope. And so I know, Unfinished Legacy is known for its pop-ups, right? You have been doing a lot of pop-ups all around the city, all around the state, out of the city. So it's actually moving to this national thing. So I kind of want to know, why use the pop-up motif as a way to connect with people?
Yeah. Unfinished Legacy presence is really huge online, and to me, one thing that I truly value is the human connection, being able to shake hands, even hug, and really meeting people that truly support me and having conversations, because that's what's actually inspiring to me, is to be able to have open conversation with individuals and to just be able to share either ideas or whatever. I feel it's usually really hard to do that online, especially when there's just a lot of DMs coming through and stuff like that. So it's really gives an opportunity to talk face to face and really just share quality time together, and that's something that I truly value. And to be able to do pop-ups from LA, Milwaukee to New York, just all the way across has been really cool, just to be able to meet some of our supporters in real life, and that's something that I value.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really seems like community is an important part of your brand, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're creating these pop-ups, what kind of community experience are you hoping that they share with you besides just the conversation together, you meet and talk? What kind of community are you trying to foster?
So usually with the pop-ups, today is just kind of very chill. We have a small setup. Thanks Shape and SNEEX for having us. And I know we've done a lot of pop-ups at All Goods too. Ali here in the front. So I'm truly grateful for some of the relationships that I've been able to foster over the years, and it's kind of opened up doors to be able to do some of these things. But I lost the question. Sorry.
It's okay. You was getting it. What kind of community do you hope to foster?
Community. Okay. So yeah. So usually the bigger ones. Ideally, my goal with pop-up is to bring the screen printing setup. So I remember one of the earlier pop-ups we've done before we even before me and Gene was doing the brand full time. We actually did it here, and we had the screen printing setup. We premiered one of our short film that we had shot in one day. So that was really cool to share that art aspect, but also to give people a chance to be hands-on and to create something that they feel like they were a part of it. I know I was just looking around and I know you're wearing one of the early shirts that we made. So,
Stand up. I know, if you want to see. All right.
Yeah, so really the brand is all about like DIY, do it yourself, and if you can't do it yourself, you can figure it out through YouTube. We all have phones in our pockets, and it's kind of like the most powerful like tool that we have access to. So
yeah, that's really good, and I'm glad that you can bring the community back and forth back into communities. That's super awesome. Now, okay, you know everybody wants to talk about the Bucks and Six Unfinished Legacy collaboration. Give it up, come on.
So for most of you guys, I mean, we just launched yesterday, and it might just seem like that happened overnight, but the conversation we've been in talk for probably about a year and a half, from the first like DM. So Dustin, who's head of marketing, had DM'd me on Instagram, and then from there, kind of just been in conversation with him, and then we got put in this like big email chain. And as you guys know, like corporate companies, like things move very slowly. And not only to myself, like I was just looking at one of my friends' collaboration not too long ago, and he was saying his took 2 years to come into fruition. So a lot of times, just like patience and kind of like not giving up hope, because there was definitely like moments when I was just like, is this actually happening or is it not? But I remember they came out to our studio in LA just to kind of get a feel of like what we're truly about. So we were able to like share kind of like our story and our journey and like what we're trying to do. So yeah, it took over a year to make this happen. Basically they were really like free in terms of like creative direction. They didn't really have much. They were just like, oh, we like what you're already doing, just do something cool for us. And to me, like the collaboration was a representation of like my positive experience, throughout Milwaukee. As you guys know, I come from East Africa, where it's not much opportunity. So to be able to come here and like, to me, like I saw Milwaukee as a playground, and I saw it as a place where I could really network and really get to meet a bunch of different people. It was the first place where I felt like a sense of like community, through skateboarding. So yeah, but for the collab, like it was about a year. Hopefully, we'll do something for playoffs too. So fingers crossed on that.
That's what's up. You kept that quiet.
Right here first.
I know, right? Right here first. I can't believe you kept that quiet for you. I know a lot of people try to blab when something like that is happening. So that's super cool. I kind of want to know some of the inspiration behind the pieces that did make it into the collection. So how did you kind of put those together?
Yeah, so I've been working with this like super talented graphic designer from Toronto. And I always want to give credit to anyone that I work with. So Hubs is his name, his art name. So he's been doing a lot of like our flyers, and I've been giving him just like chances to like design stuff. Of course, with like a lot of like creative direction. So with the Bucks, that was like actually the last design that I designed for them. So we had maybe 4 other designs. I've shown to like a few of you guys here, just kind of like sneak peeking, just to get like feedback to see like what people are feeling and what people aren't feeling. But I sent it to them, and then weeks later, before they decided, and then I was like, oh, I have this one last design, like I'll let you guys see if you like it or not. And they were like, oh, we're gonna go with that one. So it was cool. They went with something simple, and I think something that like truly represent kind of like the aesthetic that we carry as a brand as well. So
when you saw the last design, did you know like this is the one, so I better send this over? Did you feel that, or was it like I'm gonna just let them fill it out?
To be honest, like my favorite designs are still in the back burner. So hopefully those will be coming out soon.
Okay, that's good to know, because I think often we see what's presented to us and we're like, oh, that's cool, that's fresh. But I know as a creative, sometimes there are ideas that don't make it to the public, right? And you don't just eliminate them, they kind of just linger, and sometimes they manifest into new things. So I hope we do get to see them, because that would be really awesome for use to create. And so I've seen things like videography, photography, obviously the screen printing. And so, I know art is a lifestyle, right? So why do you think your creative work at this moment has kind of manifested into a clothing brand?
It's interesting you brought up like fashion. I feel like I'm anti-fashion in a way.
Okay.
I don't really care too much about clothes. I didn't grow up with clothes. It's kind of weird that I'm like, we're making clothes, but like in the back of my head, I'm always questioning myself, like, is this like the only way? Or is this the medium that I get to like pick day to day? But I hope that as time progresses, that I could dabble in other, art forms. As you guys know, I used to shoot for like the SNEEX Sofa Session. So like looking back at like footage of like, that was like my life. I was like shooting and editing every day. And photography was also a huge part of like my creative process. So really being able to hone in on like the storytelling aspect of everything and utilizing a camera to tell stories is a very important, essential part to our brand currently. So looking back, a lot of things make sense. I had to pick up a camera and be obsessed with it for 5 years in order to understand that storytelling is such an important aspect of running a business. If you guys know, like a lot of these big brands without storytelling, like they're basically nothing. Like the product almost speak for themselves because they have like visual story that like combine to the product. And one thing that I realized earlier on too is like whatever it is that we put out, we want to make sure that we're evoking some sort of like feeling. So any project that we put out, that's like the first thing that I think about. It's like, what are people gonna feel after experiencing this project? So yeah, just looking back, there's a lot of like things that like make sense now. It's like, all right, without me having to go through that, I don't think I'd be where I'm at right now. So
Yeah, that's good, and I'm glad you said that storytelling portion because that makes my job easier, right? You're trying to tell a story, but I think that's really important because I think it's connecting the value of the creative form with the impression, with its the community that you're trying to serve, and all those things. I think it's holistic the way you're approaching it, and I think that may be one of the reasons why your brand is making so much momentum, right? And so I want to ask about the momentum, especially with you being a creative whose home base now is Milwaukee, right? So what do you think about that momentum? We're seeing you on social media. We're seeing you with these great collaborations. Is that reflective of the success that you're having monetarily, with social capital and all the other things that allow for a creative to keep on with their professional journey? Is it reflecting that? I mean, it's my job, bro. I gotta ask the question.
Man, that's a hard one because I mean, with all the great things that's happening for us right now, does that reflect like the bank account? No, not at all actually. Where's Gene at?
Yeah.
The door's on
right there. So,
I mean,
right.
what I do?
I'm just talking about like all the great things that are happening right now. Like the past maybe month and a half has probably like been the lowest point for all of us. There's definitely like moments where I felt like I was about to give up. I haven't cried in so long, and there was a time maybe about 3 weeks ago or something like that. I was driving, from the studio with Brandon, and I'm like trying to figure out a lot of things between finance, balancing, work life, and I just had like this breakdown. It's just like full on, just cried and felt like I was a failure. Having a team and being like responsible for at this point, like they're all like family, brothers. Like we've slept in the studio together. the past like month we've been sleeping in my friend's garage just because I don't have an apartment in LA. We're in this process of like trying to figure out if we're transitioning back to Milwaukee or if we're gonna like stick it out in LA. But it's really crazy because from the outside looking in, like, you know, Brema and the team made it. They figured it out. You know, they're doing their thing. A lot of great things are happening, but internally, like, you know, from the inside, we're just like kind of hanging by the thread and like really just like the one thing that I'm truly grateful for is that myself and the whole team, like, we have this mentality that we know like we're talented. We know that we're gonna figure anything that comes our way, and we're gonna like we're problem solvers, and we're also like survivors. We're gonna survive through whatever it is that's coming our way, and that's something I think as artists, like, we kind of have to like have that crazy belief in ourselves in order to like keep continuing, because this is probably some of the hardest shit that I've had to like ever do. And I grew up in a refugee camp in a war-torn country. Grew up like walking barefoot, playing soccer barefoot, and like having to like pick thorns from my feet at the end of the day. But mentally and physically, like, it's very taxing trying to build this. But I do believe that we're building something that's important, and I believe that we have to go through this journey and like see it all the way through, because there's a lot of kids that like, you know, watch our YouTube video and like look up to us. And I have, at this point, I'm not even doing it for myself, to be honest. I'm doing it for like kids that look like me, kids that come from the background like I do. A lot of times, like, art isn't really encouraged in, you know, immigrant households. So I really want to be that example that you could come from a different country and not pursue a degree and pursue like your passion and really like work hard toward like what it is that you're passionate about, and you'll figure it out. Because at the end of the day, it's not really about like the monetary gain or anything like that. Currently, like, actually, there's probably like the brokest I've been, you know? It's crazy. Like, we just had a launch yesterday with the Bucks, and it doesn't reflect on my bank account, but we have not saying that it wasn't like, you know, fruitful or anything like that, but we do have a lot of great things on the corner for us, and that's something that I'm forever grateful for. I always take it back to just the basics. As long as, you know, I wake up and have clean water, have food, and have clothes, have the ability to keep pursuing what I'm passionate about, that's all that matters to me. My health did take a big dive, but that's something that I want to, you know, focusing more on, is to just make sure that I'm good so that I can, like, you know, be good for like my teammates, my family, and just people around me. But yeah, hopefully that answers a little bit of what.
Definitely did. Right. I really appreciate that transparency. And I asked that question because I think often we have this conversation where we're seeing people be, you know, reach this public display of success, right? And then we're like, oh, I wish that could be me, right? But not understanding on the back end of being a creative, on the back end of being an entrepreneur, there is struggle, right? And so I think the transparency that you just gave us in this room is going to help somebody. Somebody needed to hear that, right? To know that when you are following your passion, it can be hard, but, you know, like you said, the ability to wake up and know that you can keep doing this, that's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much. So, as you mentioned, you know, you were born in Sudan, and then you came to the United States in 2010, right? And so by happenstance, you guys wound up in Milwaukee, right? So that wasn't like, oh, let's just go to Milwaukee. That wasn't the choice, right? You're here, right? I'm sure this wouldn't have been on the top of your list, right? You know, but it seems like you really embraced this place as your home, right? And I think that's really important because, you know, there are so many different experiences that you can have in Milwaukee, and I feel like you're telling a story about our community that's really vital. And so, what has your experience in these two very different parts of the world, right? You came to Milwaukee, and you also have now experienced LA as a place to create. What has that experience between
I don't remember much of Sudan just because we migrated when I was 5. Because due to the war that was going on, a lot of families migrate to Kenya to seek refuge. So living at refugee camps. But one thing that experience has taught me is to be very resourceful. And early memories of that is I remember all the kids were really passionate about soccer, but we didn't have soccer balls, so we would like walk around for miles just like looking for plastic bags, and then we would like mesh them all together and like tie them up and create this like soccer ball. And like we got to the point where like the ball actually bounced, and that was like such a big accomplishment. So earlier on, I remember that being resourceful, and also like the one time like when we got shoes, you know, like you wear them till like they're all, you know, broken in and like all messed up, and like being able to like patch those up and like reusing, you know, just literally like taking advantage of every little opportunity to be resourceful. That's something that kind of like served me really well to like move into Milwaukee. I know based on like traveling around America from like being between New York, LA, Colorado, all these different places, I know like Milwaukee isn't a big city, or like isn't a city that's seen as a place where there's like resource or like stuff like that. But like to me I was complete opposite. When I came in here, like this place just felt like a playground. It felt like anything is like possible here. So I think there was an advantage coming from, you know, such a low place, like from like a refugee camp to like Milwaukee. Like there's still a lot of opportunities. You can make a lot of things happen here, and I tried to like really take advantage of kind of everything. Did a lot of internships throughout like high school, and that's how I met some of my teammates too. Like Gene, I met him at True School, and that was just like through a after school program. So really just like utilizing my time like wisely, making sure that I was like still educating myself and like was curious about things. To now like moving to LA, the other thing that I realized over there, it's like there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of resources. You can literally think of anything, and if you have the money, you can make it happen. You can make a pair of shoes, you could anything you're thinking of, you can make it in LA. Especially like since we're in the fashion district. So but the downside is people aren't as nice. Like every conversation like feels transactional. So I think coming with this like Midwest energy of like curiosity, really open-minded, trying to like talk to everybody that I saw. I remember the first week that I was in LA, I would go. This is so weird because like, you know, the elevator speech everybody talks about, like. So I would go in an elevator and like try to like talk to somebody like, oh, what do you do? Blah blah blah. Like
physically in the elevator, right?
Not to like pitch myself, but I was genuinely like interested just to like hear what other people are like, what they're up to and like how they're doing, and that was like very, to them like that's very weird. Like that's not like a common thing. Like people don't greet each other, like say hi, like how are you doing? So when I give that energy off, like the whole team, like people are like, whoa, where are you coming from? You're not from here. But that kind of like served us really well. I got to really meet some incredible people in the short amount of time that we've been in LA, just because of like this like Midwest like energy that like comes with us. So even though there's more opportunities and resources out there, people aren't as, you know, as open. A lot of like transactional. So whenever I do come back to Milwaukee, I feel like this sense of like home. I feel like I could have a conversation with anybody and not feel like, oh, like if I'm not being transactional with this thing, like this conversation shouldn't go anywhere. So that's something that I do value and appreciate. Like to this day, it's like coming back. I feel like I could. It's home. I can have conversation with people and not feel like, yeah, like I'm fake or something.
I like that. The Midwest energy is giving real Midwest energy over here, right? Okay, that's cool. That's what's up. For Unfinished Legacy, if you had never came to Milwaukee.
I don't know. Actually, it's crazy because like everything happened here. Like the name, the brand concept, all of it happened here. And a little story behind like the brand name Unfinished Legacy came to me when I was like 17, I think, and like I always look back to it and just be like, I can't believe like that's something that I came up with, because the name itself is so far ahead of like a 17-year-old kid. Like, what the fuck do I know about legacy? Like, a 17-year-old kid. But I remember that was like one word that like really stuck to me, and like I used to tag it everywhere. You might see like I went to Riverside, so like I put a lot of stickers and stuff in the school and whatnot. But I remember that was like the one word like I would tag around. But then like when I did the internship at the art museum, we were asked to describe ourselves with one word, and someone next to me used the word unfinished. And coming here as an immigrant, you know, I have a lot of goals, I have a lot of aspirations, and they're all unfinished. As a being, I'm still unfinished. I'm just constantly growing every day. So when I was walking home that day, I combined unfinished and legacy, and boom, like this like flashback imageries of like Nelson Mandela, like MLK, Basquiat, all these like great individuals who have like such a strong hold on society, and like their legacies are so strong that we're still building onto them to this day. And at that point, I was like, okay, that's a brand name. I'm gonna run with that. Without these experiences that I've had here in Milwaukee, I don't think I would have been able to come up with that name. And I don't even, maybe the concept of like having a clothing brand would be there, but like not to this extent that it's at right now.
Yeah, that's what's up. You never know when you're gonna find inspiration, right? So it's really important to pay attention to that. So I know in the summer of 2020, an interview with Brooke Bob from Vogue was released, and it highlighted you in Unfinished Legacy in the signature butterflies, right? The butterfly wings. It was a major opportunity to be considered for Vogue, right? And so we want to note that that's one of the leading publications in fashion globally. And so with you being on that, I'm sure that opened a lot of doors. So what made Brooke reach out to you, and what made you feel ready to even take on an interview like that?
It's a really weird time when that happened. I remember it was like the middle of pandemic. Black Lives Matter movement was happening too. It's a lot of things happening at that point. But I remember early on, like one thing that I've always been like consistent on was just like posting on social media, Instagram. Anytime a new platform comes out, I try to like hop on and be like, there's this thing called like the first wave of people like have the greater advantage. So I try to like really like live by that. So anytime a new app comes out, I try to just secure my username and then see how I could like be the first wave, because you never know. TikTok has been a really huge, and I've like talked to so many of my friends and told them like, yo, hop on TikTok, do this. This app is gonna be like, it's gonna change a lot of people's lives. Some people listen and they're doing great things now. Some people haven't, and it shows. But I remember, no, like, not to be like corny. I know like a lot of times like we're humans, you know, we're so like super judgmental. Like you think TikTok, you think of like the dances and like all these like, oh, it's not for me, it's like for kids, blah blah blah. But like the one thing that most people don't realize, like TikTok at its prime, it was like probably one of the most like, I don't even know why it was free, because it was just so powerful. Like you could post something and everybody in that area will be able to see it just based on like the algorithm and like it knowing the location and all these like crazy things. But I remember like documenting my story and just like sharing like it, not to sound like corny or anything, like and it's good to be corny. Like I don't like anytime like you're working on a project or like working on anything, and if you think like, oh, this might be corny, please pursue it. Because the feeling of being corny and like being seen as corny, whatever, it's because like you're doing something different. You're doing something that's uncomfortable, and like in order to like break barriers, you have to be uncomfortable with yourself, with your work, and like where you're headed, and never like box yourself in because you want to like, you know, relate to everybody. And anytime like somebody does something different, like people like, oh, label them as corny. But TikTok at the time, I just shared my story like, hey, I'm Brema. This is like, I started this brand Unfinished Legacy, I screen print, I do the lookbooks, blah, 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 all these different things. Posted it. The first video like hit 1 million views within like a couple hours, and we saw a big influx of like orders coming in. At the time, me and Gene were like writing all the names. We didn't even know like we could go buy. We didn't even know we could go buy like a label printer and then to print everything. So like, imagine just like hundreds of orders. Me, him, just like writing all the names, all the addresses, making sure that everything is good, like printing everything, folding, bagging, shipping, all of that. So I truly believe TikTok was the reason why we got that article from Vogue. That, a lot of traffic, there's a lot of people like that came across it somehow and then went to my Instagram. Actually, the person that recommended me to Brooke Shields, who's the writer for Vogue, was Michelle Obama's stylist. She like followed me and just like messaged me something. I was like, oh, you're doing great work, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna send your Instagram to this, person I know. All of that happened so fast. But I'm a big believer in also like using your community to your advantage. And I remember the next day after getting that Vogue article, we had posted this thing about like wanting to collaborate with Levi's and like asked everybody to go tag them. The next day, literally like back to back, Vogue confirmed, Levi's messaged us the next day, and I was like, oh shit, like we actually like with the community we have and the following we have, if we want to actually do something, and we have people who believe in us, we can literally do anything. So really like I'm a big believer in just like utilizing your community, not just like using your community, but like try to like be engaged and like be involved and like actually care about like what people have to contribute, and then in return like then you could have like these opportunities where it's like, oh, like if I ask people to like share this post, they're gonna share it because like it's not really a big deal. But like you can't just come out of the blue and be like, yo, can you share this? Like, bro, like you haven't even asked me how I'm doing, so I'm not gonna, So like really honing in on the community aspect, like checking in on the people, and like making sure that like you're moving with the right intentions and stuff like that, and kind of like the possibilities are like limitless at that point.
Absolutely, I think that's really good to say. And I can confirm that you were doing all that work because one time I saw you dropping off orders at the post office when I was dropping off orders at the post office. So I seen you hauling all those goods in there. So you was really doing the work, right? That's what's up. So I want to read this verbatim to make sure that I get it right. So in the interview with Brooke, you said, I want to show people that you don't have to leave Milwaukee to be successful. I want to reinvest in my community. And then you also said, just because I'm on Milwaukee's north side and there are bullet holes in all of our windows doesn't mean that I can't sell as much as I would if I was in New York or LA.
Let's go.
Okay? So now that you have had firsthand experience moving the company to LA, how do you feel about that statement?
No, it's still, the statement's still solid. Like I think to this day, even with moving to LA, Milwaukee's still number one on our analytics all across the board. Like Milwaukee spends their money with us, and the only reason we've left is to, I use this analogy as a tree. Like if you're in this, if you look at a forest, like most trees are kind of like the same height. You rarely see one tree like outgrowing the rest because they're all like pulling the same nutrients. And for me, like to keep growing and to keep going at like new heights, I had to like remove my roots here and plant them elsewhere so I could get those nutrients. And I'm not only saying that like that we're gonna be in LA. Like the goal is always to come back and do bigger shit here in Milwaukee. Like my goal as an artist is to be that bridge between the not the mainstream, but like being in LA, like there's a lot of resources, and I know like there's a lot of talent here in Milwaukee. So how could I be that bridge between connecting resources to talent? So that's kind of like some of the challenges that we're having right now. It's like, how do we have all these great connections? I'm still gonna keep expanding my network, expanding my connections, but how can we bring those back, either in form of like, either like physically or whatever that might be. And I know Shake has done a really great job bringing a lot of people in the industry to come here and to be able to like talk to people and like share games with them. And that's something that I think the community needs more of. There's a lot of talent here, but like we need some sort of like direction, and then also we need more resources. And if the city, you know, that's not, in a way, that's not the city's responsibility. So I feel like we're gonna take that responsibility in our own hands and use our story as a blueprint of what that could be like. Come up here, get big, leave, but then come back with resources and come back with connect the dots from here to LA or New York or whatever that might be. And that's something that I truly believe in. Anybody in here who's an artist or creative or whatever, get to that point where you feel like you've hit the ceiling, move, go grab more resources, come back and pull more people. And that's how we could thrive as a community. And it's really hard to thrive when there's no resources. So I feel like we need to be that change. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for actively being the change, right? That's a good thing, right, y'all? All right. Yeah, I know, right? I knew you was going to have a good answer. That's why I asked, right? I was trying to throw you under the bus, right? So, you know, you mentioned, you know, when you're saying this, you're not just talking about you, right? You keep referencing having a team and having people, you know, who are in this experience with you. So I'm the same way. I think it's really important to shout those people out and talk about how they contribute. So who are some people on your team and have contributed to this experience?
Yeah, so I mean, from day one, like I've been with Gene.
Okay, Gene.
Gene's basically like we're brothers at this point. We've gone through a lot together, a lot of like learning. I remember early on when we first met, we got in a lot of troubles together, just because we had a lot of energy and we wanted to do cool shit, and you know sometimes that involved breaking rules and not. But we've learned, and now I feel like it's really cool to watch us kind of turn into adults and like becoming more responsible and, you know, focusing more on like the business side of things instead of just like all the fun. We got Brandon, he's right there.
Yeah.
He's documenting everything. Is Mike here?
No.
No, Mike isn't here. Okay, it's probably gonna come later. But I mean, besides like the internal like unfinished legacy team, it's really cool to just like look in the crowd and just see that like the reason like we are where we are is because of a lot of the people in here who believed in us earlier on. Because without that support, I don't think we'd be anywhere near where we are. And that's something that I truly like am grateful for, because support is such an important thing on an artist journey. There's days where like I don't believe in myself or I don't have the confidence, but then I'll have a conversation with someone and they'll be like, yo, that one thing you did really inspired me, or like got me to do this and that, and that to me like is what keeps me going. Even I remember earlier on like working on like some of the early designs, and I remember I was showing it to Tyler and he was like super excited about it, and he bought one of the first hoodies that we came out with. And to me, like, not only did he believe in like what I had to like the ideas that I wanted to put out, but he also like in a way invested in the ideas as well. So anybody here that, you know, owns Unfinished Legacy, you guys are in a way like have stock in this company without even knowing, you know, like you guys truly did help us kind of get going, and to be able to be at a place where now we could like pursue like bigger ideas. So yeah, without the community, like we're nothing.
Aww. That's beautiful. That really touched my heart, right? Really, it really did, because I think we always talk about, you know, this cultural cachet of things like Instagram or TikTok or any of those social media platforms, but you know, it goes to show that really building a community with buying something, pouring back into entrepreneurs, pouring back into creatives, and being like, I see you, it can change somebody's life, right? It can change somebody's life, so that's amazing. So when I was doing my research, right, skateboard culture kept coming up. So, and that seems to be one of the inspirations by some of the work you've done with the brand. So what is it about skateboard culture that really inspires you?
There's something special about skateboarding. Just the whole community. I think earlier on, you know, when we first moved to Milwaukee, I really had a hard time like fitting in. I remember some of my like early memories, like going to school and not having like the best clothes. Like we didn't have money, so like we got thrifted clothes and whatnot, hand-me-downs. And I remember like early on like being bullied and stuff like that. Really had the first few years was really hard like navigating through Milwaukee, but I found skateboarding. I don't know where the fascination came from. I probably saw like some kids like riding a skateboard, and then I went home and I was like, I'm gonna build a skateboard. So I started like carving in this like wood and stuff and like trying to like figure out how to work it. But luckily, like a couple weeks later, I saw another kid like down the street like riding like this Family Dollar board, and I don't know where I got this $5 from, but I offered to buy it. He ran upstairs, told his mom, and came back down. Like, yeah, I'll sell it to you for $5. I got on the board, fell right away. but I got back right up and like just kind of just kept going with it. But it was the first community that like truly accepted me for who I am, and that's all across. Like skateboarding is one of the only, I think, few communities that like truly like accept everybody for who they are. Like it doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, as long as you like have a love for like this riding this board, like everybody like hypes you up. And I remember going to like Estabrook Skate Park, and a lot of the like Sky High is a skate shop that's sold locally here, and I remember like a lot of the older kids like kind of like in a way being like my mentor and like just very open-minded and like really excited that this kid is like excited about skateboarding. And to this day, like I feel like I could go anywhere in the world as long as I have my board and I see some other kids like skateboarding. There's ultimately like there's that connection, because society like frown upon us, you know, because we're known to be destructive, like, you know, and there's that shared vision, like, oh, nobody else like really fucks with us, so we're gonna like stick together.
But you fuck with each other.
Exactly, and that's something that, you know, taking those ethos from that community and instilling it to like what we're trying to build. It's like it doesn't matter what you look like or like where you come from, as long as like you're passionate about something and, you know, are a good human being and kind to each other. Like that's the only thing that matters. Like you don't even have to like have big goals or whatever. Like you could be a part of the tribe still. And what skateboarding gave me is something that I truly hope that I could be a reflection of that.
Yeah, that's good, because that actually leads me to my next question. So I wanted to kind of know, like, so how has skateboarding really been able to inspire these triggering conversations, right? So things about struggle, things about being a Black genius, things about having ethnic urbanism or Black swag, right? I think these are things and motifs that are popping up in your work, popping up in your branding, and they're not isolated from other people, right? But you do take a strong stance in being genuine in who you are in your experience. So can you kind of talk a little bit about how that kind of coincides?
Yeah, so I mean with the skate community too, like we already kind of know like the world is in a way against us in many ways. I remember like early on like watching a lot of skate videos, and you'll see kids getting like kicked off of like a property by like the police, and like at a very extreme way too, and it's just like thinking about that, it's like why is that the case? Like all they're doing is riding skateboards. They're not like, it's not like they're disrupting, like doing like crazy like destruction or anything like that. So seeing that, and like also my reflection too is, I know like there's a lot of like communities that society don't necessarily like accept them, so it in a way forces the community to like look within itself to find that camaraderie, and to in a way also like protect itself, because at the end of the day, like I remember walking into Estabrook, and you know, you have this like DIY skate park that a lot of like skateboarders poured their heart into, and money as well, to build like all these obstacles, to have a safe space where like kids come and like skateboard and do whatever. And like one thing that I always saw was like people picking up after themselves. Like you'd see like this, everybody came for the space as it was their own home or something. Because it was, at the end of the day, like it was a place where people came in and like felt like they're not gonna get judged, so they took care of the community, because the community took care of them. And to me, that's something that I always try to like incorporate in my work in a way, like kind of protecting the identity, and then also giving back, and in a way trying to like have a representation of like the community that we're in, and in a way also like screaming it as loud as possible. A lot of like our graphics portray either like kids, or like, you know, like the flyer for today was like a kid waving a flag, and to me that's like standing up to the world and like waving your flag. Like it's such an important like aspect to having your own identity, having your own belief systems, and like standing strong to it, and like not letting anybody, you know, make you like take a step down. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's really powerful. That's really, really powerful. So with all these inspirations coming together, these lifestyles forming this kind of identity, right? What kind of style do you think you have? What do you call your own personal self-expression with all these things in mind? If you could call it something, what would it be? Or describe it as something, what would it be?
It's like DIY, like do it yourself, like figure it out, and never aiming for perfection. Just I was just having a conversation earlier about really believing in just progression, and not being too caught up on like chasing perfectionism. I know Virgil has this great quote, I don't want to butcher it, but it's something along the way of like perfectionism like kills artists or something like that, and I try to live by that too. It's like don't aim for perfection, as long as like you're progressing day by day, like that's the only thing that matters. Yeah, don't be attached to the final result either. Like the journey's much more important than that.
Yep, it's all about process, y'all. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so thank you for sharing all those things. Now we know you're super open to collaboration, right? And so you've been collaborating with brands like you mentioned, Levi's, big corporations like the Bucks and the NBA, which took a year to do, right? And then other names like Bella and Canvas and Crash Drop, right? So you've done some work that kind of does that. So what is a good collaboration for you? What makes you say, yep, I want to collaborate with them, or yeah, let's formulate something together, let's share ideas. What makes a good one for you?
I like collaborations that from two strong like identities. A lot of times, even like with us, the one thing that I'm very adamant about is having a strong identity and having a clear message on like what we're trying to accomplish. And then like the products kind of come secondary. So to me, some of my favorite collabs are like not necessarily product. It's like if you're a shoe company, I'm really interested to see like what a shoe company and a car company would do. Like, what does that look like? Is it like a shoe with a tire on it or something? You know, so I like using recycling tires to make shoes. that's like things that I'm like interested about, like innovating, coming together, and like bringing new ideas, and not necessarily the old. Like one thing that I really dislike is when two brands come together and just slap their names like this X that without attributing much to the collab. And to me, like storytelling is a big part of like my creative process. So like, what story are we trying to tell with this collaboration? And what are we trying to communicate? I think those things come before even a product. So I'm always, I think a great collaboration is one that inspires, one that innovates, and one that's telling a great story.
Inspires, innovates, and telling a great story. Okay, remember that, y'all. Okay? Yes, absolutely. So, if you had your choice, what would be the next 3 collaborations you would go for, and why? Gene got something to say, so you better
mess this up.
Oh, wait. You want to yell them out?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, we aiming for Milwaukee tools.
Oh, wait, hold up. Okay. I'll take it back. Yeah, let's talk about it. I think being in LA, we've really taken like a lot of pride in the city that we come from, like Milwaukee. There's a lot of times, like a lot of the design that include Milwaukee is just because I want to wear something that represents the city that I'm from, and then that opens up conversations. So there's, the brand name having legacy in it. There's a lot of legacy brands in Milwaukee, and I mean, this is my ultimate like vision in life would be to be that glue that brings all these companies together and just create like really loud noise. Because I think Milwaukee has the ability to be not to be known as a small city. Like we have so many great things. We have Harley Davidson, Milwaukee Tool. We got the Bucks. We got Miller. You guys can yell them out. What other legacy brands are here? Okay. Johnson Control. So there's a lot of great legacy brands here. And something that I've noticed with a lot of cities that I've been to is they all work collaboratively. So in my head, I'm like, why can we do like a Harley Davidson, Milwaukee Tools, Bucks collab that ends up on runway? Like, why not? All these brands are very recognizable. They're very prominent in culture. We're in LA. Kids are wearing Harley Davidson. They don't even know that it comes from Milwaukee. It's like I tell them we're from Milwaukee. Like, where's that? Dude, you're wearing a Harley Davidson tee. You should know like some of the history behind it. And to me, like that would be like the ultimate like dream is to collaborate and just bring everything together so that we can like make as much noise as possible and we're not overlooked all the time.
I like that idea. What y'all think? I like that. That's a good idea, bro. Alright, who up in here working on Milwaukee too? You don't want to pass that over, right? Right. Let's talk, right? Pass that over. I think that's really admirable, right? Because you give the opportunity, it's like, let's not isolate ourselves. It's not just us, it's all of us. It's all of us in this together. Let's make noise for our city, right?
And I feel like those bigger companies collaborating too will be such a great example for all of us creatives.
Yeah.
I feel like Milwaukee's such a small city, we should all be like working together. Like there should be no competition between each other. Like let's all like work with, because we're a small city at the end of the day, like we can't compete against each other. Like let's all work together and let's try to like appeal to the mass audience. And I feel like this space could be a place where like how can we make people from Chicago drive down to Milwaukee and not the other way around, and not only Chicago but like the whole Midwest, like let's really make Milwaukee an attraction, because there's a lot of great companies here. There's a lot of great things. Even like in my head right now, I'm like Harley Davidson got the 120th anniversary. Yeah, 120th anniversary coming here. Like, how can we make that an attraction? Like, we can literally archive all the T-shirts. Let's make a museum out of it. Like, let's make people drive to Milwaukee, spend their money here, so that we all have more opportunities, more resources to like create even at a larger scale.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the way my brain like thinks.
Entrepreneur.
Right, exactly, right? Entrepreneur. I think you're really thinking big, and I think you're thinking longevity, and you're thinking community, and it's refreshing to hear that, because I think often we're thinking about, well, what's it gonna do for me? How's it gonna serve me, right? And you're including the big corporations, and that's crazy, because I myself be like, they don't care, they don't want us, right? Like, but you're thinking about the big corporations and how that can even be beneficial for them to have those connections with each other. So I think, yeah, creative director of the year, let's do that. Let's do that. All right, so, the more your story gets told and it's starting to be shared, the more we're learning, right? The more we're learning. And you just dropped some gems in this space, let alone, So is there something that you would really like to share, or something that usually doesn't come up in these interviews, something that you want to talk about that maybe people are not thinking to ask you? I really want to give you an opportunity to share any of those things.
I mean, I think earlier on, I feel like I was a little like vulnerable outside of like my comfort zone. Just as artists, we navigate the world, and a lot of times like we think we're alone. It does get lonely. It does get like, it feels like the world don't really understand, just based on the perception of like social media. Like, oh, you got it figured out. Like, too afraid to reach out because like. But I think really checking in on each other, no matter what you think the person is up to, like, check in, just being humans. Like, I think it's such an interesting concept that like, the more we get deep into social media, the more we're like removed from like humanity. Like, we don't even like look each other in the eyes anymore. Like, everybody's down on their phones. So I mean, that's kind of, I feel like I was earlier, like I was a little bit out of my comfort zone, so that kind of answers. Yeah.
They gave the real right there. Okay, good. And so now your brand is called Unfinished Legacy. And so, do you think your legacy will ever be finished?
No, not at all. Actually, I think something. This is, I guess, as a business person, like a lot of business people might look at me and be like, why the fuck are you investing a lot of money into documenting your journey and doing all these like YouTube videos, blah blah blah. Like, we've been posting on YouTube for the past like 2 years. Like, not, I don't know if some of you guys have watched the YouTube channel or not, but like, that's something earlier on, even like before I even had money, I like paid my friend to like, all right, just document, make these videos, we'll post them on YouTube, and they're gonna live on. And I feel like a bit of like my legacy is exposing kids to how to start your own brand, how to screen print, how to like express yourself, and beyond the clothing brand, like I have a bunch of other like big dreams that I wanna pursue, and I hope it'll contribute to like my legacy here on this on this earth. And I don't think I don't aim for my legacy to be finished. I aim for it to get passed on generation after generation, and I hope that it could be an example to a lot of kids. As humans, there's always war going on, and refugee immigrants, there'll always be a story that's constant. So hopefully like 20, 100 years from now, like there's immigrant kids out there willing to pursue art because they're passionate about it and not because their parents are telling them to go to college and pursue a degree.
Well, thank you for sharing your legacy with us. I really appreciate that. I want y'all to give it up. But y'all know we not done. I know you guys might have some questions that you want to ask. So that was it. That was all. That was thorough. All right. That was enough. Get it off. But I would like to open the floor up to anybody who wants to ask a question and see what kind of answers we can get from those. So does
capturing the whole moment, like at every session, and now you're the person there. Like, how does that feel? That transition?
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy like the documentation process and like really, because it is important. Like this, we need more conversations like these. We need more of this safe space where people could open up and be vulnerable. So I am very grateful to be able to do this, and it does in a way like there are like things that I don't really get to talk about through like social media or not. So like it feels great to be able to like, I feel safe to be vulnerable with you guys and to be able to like share even some of the ups and downs of like my journey. So it does feel great.
I don't even think you want this mic, 'cause okay.
So you talked a little bit earlier about making a transition from Milwaukee to LA. What was like the personal equation for like critical mass when you were like, all right, I've made it here, now it's time to go?
I feel like it happened organically because, you know, with owning a business and a brand, it's constant like problem solving. So I remember early on, like one of the problems we had was how can we ship stuff faster? That was something that we constantly saw on social media, like, hey, where's my order, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, we have a shipment coming from LA to Milwaukee that takes 2 weeks. I don't know why it takes 2 weeks, but, and then we're working with like screen printers that might take up to 3 weeks to turn that around. So really like the inception of like a design to the final product took about a month sometimes. But now like being out in LA, literally I could think of an idea right now, go out there and get it made same day. And that to me, like having access to like that speed is very important as a brand. And it could either make or break you because you don't want to like have your customers waiting on you for orders and stuff like that. And that's something that we're still constantly like working on improving and stuff like that. But like that was a problem that we saw that was constantly happening, and to be able to solve it, we needed to be closer to like resources and not having to wait 2-3 weeks for the resources to come to us. So we went to the resource. But now like we're hoping to transition back. Of course we have that tightened up a little bit. And having like these relationship with people is opening up a lot more doors as well, because I have people that I trust out in LA to be able to like run a production for me and do everything and like ship it to us without having to go through the headaches of like, oh, I've never worked with this person, I don't know what their process is like, blah blah blah. So yeah, I feel like it's very apparent when you know you've hit that ceiling and you're ready to leave. So
Who else has a question? Kim.
So, I know you mentioned that you have times when you feel down, and so you talk with others and they help build you back up. But what do you say to yourself in those moments? Like, what are some words of encouragement or just words of foresight that you say to yourself that maybe others might use too?
A lot of times I just look back to my upbringing, and I don't know if it works for me, but I don't know if you guys could apply it too. But I always think that it's bigger than myself, and the dreams that I'm pursuing. I know there are kids out in the refugee camp that don't have opportunities at all. So for me, I feel there's this like sense of like responsibility to be able to like just keep my head up and keep going. I've been at the lowest, and I know a belief that I have in myself is that it's gonna get better, it's gonna get easier. And that's something that I always tell myself. And not only tell myself, but I truly do believe that things do get easier. But also there's a greater responsibility with great heights. So that's something that I also like, I'm very aware of. But I do tell myself to, gets easier, and ask for help when I need to, and lean on the people I have around, because they're there for a reason.
Yes, in the back.
In depth, when you got that message or call, what were your emotions with the collaboration with Milwaukee?
When I got the what call?
About the boxing legacy, you said this has been a talk over a year and a half now.
Yeah.
When they actually put the go on it, what were your emotions like in depth? Yeah.
Oh man. So the first message was like, you know, of course, great excitement, like really excited, like, oh, this is actually gonna happen. But then not knowing how long it's gonna take for it to happen. And then there were like these moments of like doubting. It's like, oh, they haven't responded to the email, like, you know, we're still waiting on a lot of things. And the other thing that I had to realize too throughout this whole process is like, with working with the big corporate company, there's a lot of like levels that things have to be okayed for it to move forward. So like with us, I could literally think of an idea right now and be like, yo, we're dropping this as a collection, and no one's gonna say yes or no. Like we don't have to go through like 3 levels of like, you know, departments in order to okay this idea. So yeah, like having to wait was like, there's a lot of like doubt throughout that process. And then there was just moments where like there was nothing happening. Like, okay, like what's actually going on? But then, you know, we're just constantly like proactive, following up, making sure that like we're staying in communications. Even if it's like something random that has nothing to do with the collabs, like, oh, maybe just send a text and just like share something that you're excited about, like share a vision that you have about something. And that's something that I truly believe in. It's just like, don't really focus on the project, but focus on everything else outside the project to strengthen those relationships so that you can build that trust. And then, which trust in itself like will eliminate doubts and stuff like that. So, and then coming up to the week when, you know, things were getting in production, most of you guys might not even know this because like, you know, you guys weren't on the email chain, but we had. So, the week of production, we had these tags made that were going to get sewn onto all the pieces, and they arrived like the day we had to deliver all the products. So when I saw that email, I tracked it. I was like, oh, this thing is not gonna come in time. So that was like the first thing. One morning I woke up, looked at my email, and I realized that they weren't gonna come in time. So that whole day was like fucked for me. I was like stressing over it. I'm like, this is like the biggest project we've ever had to do, and this thing isn't coming in on time. Blah blah blah. The first rounds of sample, like, something went wrong too with that, like where the plastisol ink we used was like cracking or something because it was too old, and those things are really stressing about like these minute details. It's because and reflecting on those moments too, like it's because we care a lot. Like we really care about like the project, and we really care about like giving Milwaukee quality and not settling for like anything lesser than that. And so that caused a lot of stress for myself. I think that was the reason why I was also like really sick the past like couple of days, because I was like very stressed out. And now it's like moving back between LA and Milwaukee, the weather change and all of that. So while the world and everybody around me was like super excited, you know, the internal team, like we were just like freaking out and like we were all stressed out. But at the end of the day, like, you know, we drove all the product from LA to fucking here. I was sick in the back of the truck.
Oh no.
Gene and Brandon drove 32 hours just so we could like deliver this thing on time. I wasn't trusting UPS with that type of like responsibility, so we took it in our own hands to do that. Literally worked to the last last second for this collab to come in. But yeah, there was, as much as like there was a lot of excitement, there was also like a lot of like frustration and like stress. But I do realize it's only because we care. That's why I'm stressed out about all these things.
Awesome.
Yes.
So I know I came in late, but so I don't want you to repeat yourself if you did, but I want to know the story behind the butterfly. And then I also want to know, since you're talking about doing collaborations with, you know, like the bigger companies, would you be interested in doing collaborations with like different community organizations?
Yeah, definitely. So meaning behind the butterfly, at the time, I forgot, maybe 2019, I was working with this agency called Urban Mist Ventures, and we were doing a lot of like storytelling for companies, advertisement, and stuff like that. But deep down, like my passion was to figure out how I could pursue Unfinished Legacy full time. I had like the screen printing press in my parents' basement that I wasn't utilizing because I was, you know, too focused on the agency life and trying to also like figure that out. And then one afternoon I was just like, okay, I have this press at home. I want to go home and like print something because I've been too far removed from the process. And randomly, like I saw like, you know, monarchs just flying by, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna just go like print like, you know, the butterfly on like some pair of jeans. So I went home, I had everything. I burnt the screens, screen printed on some like white pair of Levi's. The next day, like posted them, and like the caption went along with like, if you have an idea, don't like wait for anybody or something like that, and just like pursue it. And that post garnered a lot of like attention. Everybody like seemed to be like fucking with whatever I created. White pair of denim pants with butterflies all over them. Like it was the first time like I've seen something like that too. So from that point, it forced me as an artist. I always want to have like substance and meaning to like whatever it is that I do. So I was like, all right, everybody seemed to be loving this butterfly. There's like the universal connection to it, which is like the transformation phases. You know, there's different phases to a butterfly, and that's something that it's universal. Anyone can relate to that. But I chose to like take it a step further and research a little bit more. So I found out that butterflies are a symbol for migration, and I was like, perfect. I'm an immigrant here, and butterflies migrate. Like, they travel long distance to just kind of like reproduce and you know, the whole migration cycle. So that was like something that was a little dear to me, but I just did more research, ended up coming across this quote about like butterflies can't see their wings, so they can't see how truly beautiful they are, and everybody else around them can. And to me, like I attributed that to just my values, you know, like throughout high school, like my classmates will come up to me, like see my sketchbook and be like, yo, you could be a great tattoo artist, blah, blah, blah. And like, I never really saw that in myself. But over the years, I started to slowly like be confident in like my art and be like, okay, maybe I am like, maybe I do have a vision that's worth, you know, pursuing. So that in itself, like with the transformation phases, like I'm growing into this artist that a lot of people like saw me as, and I never saw myself as that. So that's the reason why we use the butterfly. It's beyond just like the aesthetic appeal. There's actually like deeper meanings to it. And then you had a second question.
Yeah, so like potentially working with different community organizations, like
Oh yeah,
you know.
definitely. Yeah, that's something. I mean, I'm very big into like collaborating. Not even necessarily like, oh, like let's make a shirt, but like how can we collaborate beyond making a product? Like what else could we do? Could we activate a space? Could we like engage people with like screen printing or whatever that might be? I'm really interested to like pursue ideas that are like beyond just making clothes. And if it does come to like making clothes, and if it's a cool idea, like let's do it. I am very open to it, and the other thing too, like with coming back to Milwaukee, is like we wanna we want to really be involved within the community. I realize like there's a lot of things that I've picked up in LA that I want to bring back and like slowly implement in my day to day and within also like the community that we're building. And collaboration is going to be a big part of that as well.
Other questions? Yes, in the back.
Hi, Brenda. Would you ever go to your home country, Sudan, and like do like a curation, like in a project with them, like a community thing? So I feel like that would bring like the entire community together.
Yeah. So like right now, my family has been, my dad specifically has been doing a lot of like kind of like crowdfunding money and like sending it back to help build schools and stuff like that. One of my biggest goals this year is to like design a uniform for like all the kids in that school in Sudan. And I think my biggest like contribution to this world would be I want to eventually either go back to school or either get to a point where like my name is big enough that I could like pitch projects and for them to like come to fruition. So I want to, you know, go back home and build schools, hospitals, and really the whole thing like about like bringing back resources, and that's something that I'm always about. I did grow up with no resources, so I feel like it's in a way like my responsibility to be that resource or like bring back resource and give back to where I'm coming from, where I came from. And I think that, yeah, I truly do believe that would be like my bigger contribution, part of like my legacy is to build schools and stuff like that back home.
Yes, the hat.
Hello, Brahma. I also came late, so I don't know if you said it, but I was curious with like runway stuff and Harley and stuff, if you guys are thinking about runways and UL and like crashing some fashion weeks, or if that's at all a scheme you're thinking of.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool. I don't know, like this, I remember there's this one day, like, I was just like, I don't know, like, I was just really excited. At the studio, I'm just like always just like going crazy on like some ideas. Sometimes I don't know if the team get annoyed with me, but I remember pitching to Gene like, bro, don't you think it'd be cool as fuck if Harley had like a runway show where there was like bikers, blah blah blah. Travis Scott already fucks with Harley. What if he was like the first person to come out, blah blah blah, and like there's bikes everywhere, like people maybe doing wheelies and whatnot, and just like going on with like this tangent of like thoughts, because I do believe like there's a lot of cool things that could be done within fashion that's like makes it fun. Like I personally don't really, clothes aren't really my thing like that. So I do everything else around it though, like the engaging and activating spaces and like really bringing people together and like making something that's like in a way like shouldn't exist, like actually exist. Like in my head, I'm like, okay, what if Harley Milwaukee Tool did something like that? That'd probably be really fucking dope for like Milwaukee. And I feel like it'd bring a lot of eyes to the city, which will open up more doors for a lot of the creators coming from here. And I'm always thinking like, how do we bring more eyeballs to the city of Milwaukee? How do we bring more eyeballs? Not only like, that's the same thing I think about too, like with running the brands, like, okay, like, what can we do that's going to capture people's attention? So a lot of like our visual projects, in a way, like comes from that idea of like, okay, like how can we get people to like look at us, like look that we're doing something cool. I remember before the SNEEX pop-up, we had like a mob of like bikers, all of them wearing like Unfinished Legacy, riding downtown, and to me like that was like the coolest thing ever, because you have this like brand that brought a lot of bikers together, and now they're all mobbing as one unit, and I think that's really cool. Milwaukee's a small city, we should all be like mobbing as like one unit, because more people are gonna look at that. I'm like, who are these kids? Like they're from Milwaukee. Where's Milwaukee? Oh, Giannis is from Milwaukee. Like, you know, all these, and then there's like you connect all these dots. That's kind of how my brain works. a lot of times, and I think this year would be cool to do a runway show. Like that's something I've been talking about with the team, is how can we present like a runway, and not just a runway, like a whole experience. Maybe a short film that like premieres before the runway, and then a runway event after, DJs, whatever. Like just making a fun experience that people want to actually come to and enjoy and connect. I'm a big believer in like bringing a lot of great minds in the same room together, because there's a lot of like cool collaboration that can happen, cool connection that can be happen. And my experience with Milwaukee has been a lot of the rooms that I've ended in have had a lot of great individuals, and I've got to meet a lot of people that inspired me and my journey. And I want to give that same feeling and opportunity to other creators.
Good answer. Do we have any other questions?
Ooh, we got one.
Well, Gee has a question.
Yeah, it's nothing crazy, you know. I mean, I've been there throughout the process of creation, production, and the pop-ups and stuff like that. We've created, I don't know how many SKUs since we started. But what's your like all-time favorite unfinished legacy piece? From maybe before we were in an official LLC until today.
Oh man.
You gotta pick a child, man.
Right.
Yeah, that is so hard. Man, we didn't put this one out, but I remember our studio in North Ave and 20th Street. There was this one shirt that I always wore when I printed, and anytime I made a new screen, I would just use that screen and print on top of that shirt and just wear it back again. So it has like prints on the inside, on the outside. It's like just like this chaotic piece, like super colorful, super vibrant, like so many prints, so many different, like in a way like unofficial like collabs, because I did produce a lot of like stuff for other brands and whatnot, and all of them like ended up on that shirt. And I feel like that to me embodies like what a great piece is. And when I'm always like, when I go like vintage or like thrifting or whatever, I'm always like trying to like find the test print tees, which is like the shirt they use to like test print everything before they put it out. And then those end up being like one of the most like unique pieces. So I like anything that's like one of one, ink everywhere, like just messy, and yeah, those are like my favorite pieces. I would say that one shirt.
That's pretty dope. We need you to frame that piece. You know what I'm saying? We need you to frame that one. That one's gonna go up for auction. Oh, you sure? Oh, okay. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, right here.
Well, what's your favorite piece?
Oh,
Yeah.
Put you on the spot.
So actually, I don't know if anybody's familiar with our half zip tees. It's like blue. We originally dropped them. They're blue and white stripes, red unfinished legacy, the catacomb piece design. If you guys know what that means. That's actually my favorite piece. I created that piece originally last year on my birthday. Just to wear personally, you know. I do little cut and sew projects, stuff like this. You know what I'm saying? The one-on-ones, like Grandma said, you know, we always make something special for ourselves. But I wore it for my birthday, and I posted it, and everybody was like, "Yo, I don't see it on the website." Like, Grandma, bro, I know you see these DMs. So, and that's another thing, you know, like having the resources of being out in LA, I was able to go hit the garment district. We picked up a bunch of those tees, and we dropped like 100 of those. So I was happy to be like part of the design process. It was one of my first pieces that I officially like completely designed.
Right here in the back.
How does working with a team sort of work within your group? Like, I know it talks a lot about you, but how does the collaboration within
The team?
Yeah, how do you?
Yeah, I feel like at this point, like we're very like fluid. We all like walk into the studio, like we know exactly what we need to do. There's a point where we would meet every day, but now it's like turned back to just like Monday meetings, and then it's very fluid. Where studios like to me like my workspace has always been chaotic. Gene is the more like structured, like make sure the place looks clean. Same thing with Brandon. So it's good to have that balance. But if I was by myself in the studio, it'd probably be a mess. Because that's how I function. Like I function well in chaos. But some people don't appreciate that.
We be having guests, man. We be having guests.
I'm on your side. I'm on your side, Jay. I'm on your side. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, right, all the way in the back.
So, 2 questions. First, I've known you to wear bandanas since the day I met you. We have never seen an Unfinished Legacy bandana. When and why? And then also, when I first met you, you were like Levi's and graphic tees, and your style has like progressed so much since, I don't know, since then. How and do you attribute that to kind of like your work with the brand or, you know, moving to LA?
I think moving to LA has influenced a little bit. Like one of the fewer people that I met and I'm very grateful to call him a friend is Reese Cooper, who's a big designer, had done runways in Paris, Fashion Week, all of that, and he's like a year younger than me, which is crazy. I'm like, dude, you're like killing shit and like inspiring to me. By him taking us open armed, like brought us in like to watch his creative process. I got to watch him like work on like his 2023 spring summer collection like a year ago, which to me was like crazy. I'm like, dude, how are you working a year in advance? My brain can't even comprehend that because I think of an idea now, I like want to put it out, and they're like working a year ahead, and to me like that was kind of crazy. But he's like taking us in and like in a way like I see him as a mentor. And he's blessed me with a lot of like pieces. I remember the first time he did a pop-up in LA, like we got to screen print, but during the pop-up, he's just like, Unfinished Legacy, you guys could grab whatever you want from the racks. And like, let alone like his jackets go for like $2K, his shoes like $5. Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, so me, Gene, and I had to like let everybody like, let's take it easy. Like, let's not try to like, take too long. but yeah, like people like him, like kind of like has shaped. Even like when I look in my closet, I'm like, dude, like a year ago, I would never imagine myself like wearing any of these things. But like, we're so like blessed and fortunate to like have people around us that like make cool shit. And there's nothing I enjoy more than like wearing the things that my friends made. Because like when that conversation happens, like, oh, where'd you get that piece from? Then it's my chance to like put them on to like. And I take a lot of pride in like, like my homie made this. He's super talented. Just check him out, blah, blah, blah. And like, and that's something that I hope like people that wear Unfinished Legacy, like to kind of like feel a sense of like pride and like, oh, I know this guy, and like this is like his brand, and putting them on to like a new brand is like a cool, to me it's like, it's really cool. Sharing music, sharing art, sharing anything, like it's a great thing. And then, what was the second question? Bandanas. Any time like someone asks me about a product, like why isn't this out? A lot of times like we've like worked on it, but I have a bad habit of like aiming. I talked about not aiming for perfection. I'm working on it. So a lot of times like I'm like, okay, this isn't like what I envisioned. Like let's put it on the back burner, but. It's a great question, great reminder to me to just kind of pursue some of those ideas. We do have like 3 bandana designs that we just haven't really put into production yet, but hopefully soon.
Because it has to be Brimmer worthy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now you have a question. Okay.
It actually branches off that bandana idea. you ever thought about anything incorporating into skateboarding? Because I know that's a big part of your upbringing. So just even with skateboards, working with different skateboard shops, anything, is that across your mind?
Yeah, I definitely I want to make skateboards. I want to make, not only for like the art's sake, I also want to make skateboards that people enjoy riding and stuff. But to me, since like I hold skateboarding so close and dear to me, I want it to be something special. Like I don't want to just like slap a graphic on a skateboard. We have designed a lot of like skateboards, but I just haven't put it out for that reason, because I feel like it needs to be something special. It needs to be something that fully embodies my experience with skateboarding. The whole team, like Brandon, Gene, myself, we all skate. So I feel like in order to put a project like that out, it has to truly like reflect our experiences with this passion and like community. So.
And yeah, we got one right there.
Since you talked so much about wanting to give back to the community and creating an example for kids, have you thought of doing some smaller sweatshirts and stuff for kids to wear as well?
Yeah. The one thing about clothing industry and stuff, like logistically, it would be a nightmare to even think about. Man, yeah, it's scary. I mean, there's a lot of people like asking about like, oh, can you make kids clothes, blah blah blah. I'm like, it's a scary thing to invest in like a bunch of youth sizes and knowing that that's not our demographic. But I do. My goal as a brand is for Unfinished Legacy to be universal and anybody to rep it. I think the name in itself, a 1-year-old kid or a 90-year-old person, like all of them could wear it, and I want the brand to be a reflection of that. It does take a lot of like baby steps to get to that point though. A lot of the suppliers we work with, they only offer, they only offer just kind of adult sizes. That's why we're trying to get into like cut and sew, so we could at least control a little bit of like our output. So from everything from like an extra small to like 4XL. That is something that I look at our brand and there's days where it doesn't truly reflect like what we're about. The idea of like being inclusive and being for everybody, but then we're only offering sizes small to 2XL. And that in itself, it does take a lot of time, but the thoughts are there, the ideas are there. It's just a matter of like finding time and resources and those two aligning for us to be able to like output things that fully encapsulate like what we're about.
Oh, okay, all right, I'll say that.
Do you do any canvas work at all?
Canvas?
Yeah, like just painting or any.
So I grew up like drawing and painting, but I feel like being in the industry that we're in, it's very taxing. So a lot of times we don't really have much time to dedicate to other things. We have like minimized a lot of like what we do day to day. There's days where we don't even like get a chance to like skateboard or whatever because we're so focused on like, all right, we need to make sure this project like hits a certain deadline. But my goal, I think to be a artist with full freedom is to be able to like experiment and having rooms to experiment, because a lot of times like when you're too caught up in like the business side, like you almost lose touch with what got you there, and that's something that I'm very like aware about. And this year into next year, I want to slowly like implement not only like focusing on the business, but also like expanding my art form, not only like with screen printing, but like maybe there's days where we could implement like let's just get into let's just paint or like let's draw it with no really direction or like a goal of like having it be like a monetary gain, but more so just like a creative exercise to expand our creative possibilities. Like we have conversation about, me and Brandon were talking earlier about like large format painting and how like we both kind of want to like learn that process of like painting like a big mural and stuff like that. Yeah, there's interest. It's just a matter of like finding time. Like, and I hope this year is something that we can balance, like time and work and like creative life balance.
So I'm gonna give you your last question. So you have shared so many things with us, so thank you so much for that. So the last thing I want to ask is, what should we be hoping for, longing for Brema, Unfinished Legacy, and your team in the future, and how can we pour into you?
One thing that, I mean, one of our tagline is just like endless pursuit of creative fulfillment, and then the other one is like pursuing your passion fearlessly. It's actually on one of the shirts saying, I believe that we could change the world if we pursue our passion fearlessly. And that's something that, I mean, I want to encourage everybody to like truly like look inward and see what they're passionate about, and pouring as much energy and as much of yourself into that passion as you can, because I think that's how we start changing the world, or at least moving that needle forward. So yeah, pursue your passions, be good human beings, look people in the eyes, smile at them, say hi. Just like the little things, the little things go a long way. And truly like caring for each other, and not necessarily like that transactional thing that we're talking about earlier. And like without any gain, how could you be there for somebody? And that's something that, as I move forward too, I wanna be a better human being outside of just like a business person or like artist or whatever. It's how can I be a better person? How can I be a better friend, brother? Whatever that might be. So just bettering ourselves every day.
Bettering ourselves every day. Give it up for Brema!
Thank you guys so much.
This ain't fire, this is changeless, bro. Stop playing with it. Oh my god, this is crazy. Hey, let's talk about it. For real, say that.